Just over a year ago, I set out to prove that you could save money by growing food in your front garden. Sharing this project has certainly divided opinions. I've received so many comments, different questions about what I'm doing. Some of the responses have been really surprised by the results that I've shared. But the truth is, I've been surprised by the results of this project. And in this video, I'm going to share with you some of the very unexpected things that came as a result of growing in this front garden growing space. Now, I built and shared this front garden to prove a point that you can save money by growing food in a tiny space even like this one. But to do this, it meant that I had to operate on a budget. And one of the things that really surprised me about this project was the fact that gardening on a budget is surprisingly fun and inspiring. I thought it'd be a chore, but it inspired me to do extra things, like lining these raised beds with old compost bag plastic. Lining those beds actually helped keep the moisture in. It's going to help to protect the wood. This is something I wouldn't have necessarily done if I wasn't operating on a budget like this. It's great for sustainability too. So many of the materials that I used in this project came from offcuts from either old projects that I've done or from local tradesmen who would have otherwise put materials in a skip. I discovered that actually going through skips was a lot of fun. And I loved innovating like this. It really added something to the project using offcuts in this way. I think the results are pretty good considering that this garden is quite cobbled together. This is a project designed to show that the outputs of a small growing space can be significant, but in trying to keep the input costs down, it made me realise how we don't have to spend too much money on gardening. This is a hobby accessible to people with so many different budgets. The bamboo canes that you see here, they are all reused. These are all items that would have been destined for landfill otherwise. How amazing is it to think that instead of being put in the bin, these bamboo canes are going to have runner beans and French beans climbing up them. So many of the containers you can see here are reused or salvaged. Often garden centres chuck materials away and I was able to reuse them. In the spirit of saving money, composting became a lot more important, literally using a waste product to create the fuel to power next season's garden. Growing on a budget wasn't about things that I couldn't do. It inspired me to do extra. I managed to salvage this old water butt, which in turn inspired me to plug it into the downpipe from the roof of the house. I got a real kick out of the idea of harvesting rainwater and making this garden as low maintenance and self-sustaining as possible. Would I have done this if I wasn't looking through skips and found the water butt? I'm not sure. But I was so glad to have this supply of water in the hot summer months. Growing on a budget was fun. It inspired me, and it was actually one of the things I enjoyed most about building this garden. I really didn't expect to enjoy the thrifting aspect of this garden so much. I made a conscious decision when designing this garden to grow varieties that I knew we would eat lots of. I needed this garden to be productive, to actually meet our needs. And designing the garden and growing with this specific objective in mind changed the way that I garden, growing lettuces for the winter and lots of wild rocket and salad herbs throughout the summer months. I kept things simple. I grew things that I knew we used rather than things that I hoped we'd use. Growing food in the front garden helped to ground me in the local community. I met our neighbours, I made loads of friends locally while I was working in the garden. But the effect of this front garden went further than that. Myself and my wife set up a community interest company, a non-profit, working with inner city primary school kids, inspired by my own front garden adventures to build food growing spaces in inner city primary schools. Got my mum involved, and we had so much fun developing the food growing space that you can see on the screen right now. I think it's really powerful sharing the same message that I shared from my front garden with a new generation of gardeners, that anyone can grow things, and it's really, really important that you'll do so. The kids had so much fun developing this growing space. We applied the same principles to this school garden as we did to my front garden, prioritising quick turnaround, high value crops. Because the aim of this project was explicitly to save money, I had to be really ruthless. Everything that was growing within my garden space had to work, it had to save me money, and I was really surprised just how much fun being this ruthless was. So often as gardeners, we look at crops sentimentally, but in this front garden space, I had to make every inch of it work. I had to be really, really strict, almost treating these growing spaces as production facilities, constantly trying to improve the soil between crops. You can see me here adding a layer of top dressing of the homemade compost that I'd made to the top of these beds. All of my raised beds were no dig, and therefore they needed to be fed and topped up in between crops. But I found this whole process really fun. It also inspired me to really get on it, sowing seedlings, making sure that I had the next crop ready to go in the moment that I ripped the old crops out. This drive towards productivity led me to add the covers to the raised beds that you can see me lifting up here in this video. Now, you might not believe it, but this video was shot in January here in the UK, and underneath these raised beds I've got a really good growing space. This drive towards productivity, it made me prioritise the autumnal months, and that's where I saved a lot of money. Here in the UK, autumn can be a really productive growing season, and I turned the autumn and winter into really exciting months. One of the most common questions I've been asked over the last few weeks is, wasn't I worried that things were going to be stolen from the front garden? After all, so often we grow in our back gardens to kind of protect our stuff. We live in a very down-to-earth area, and I can assure you, absolutely nothing was stolen from this front garden. I made loads of friends in the local area, and I was out here filming quite a lot with my camera equipment. To date, nothing has been stolen. Made some great connections with the local community, and I've loved being out here. It's never even crossed my mind that anything would be taken, and I don't think anything ever would be. Thanks so much for your time watching this video, guys.